Alright guys, welcome back, and this is my playoff special episode. And in today's episode, I will be going over my playoff predictions for each round and giving you guys my Super Bowl winner. I might post another video during Super Bowl week or something, and I might post more throughout each week too, recapping certain games and stuff. But I'm giving my picks as of today, what I view for each team as. Some teams can get hotter in the playoffs, and some teams can get colder in the playoffs. The one thing I want to say though is I think this is the most open the playoffs have been in a while, especially with the Chiefs out of it. And I feel like there's a strong one team that's gonna blow out every team. I think anyone can beat anyone. But stay tuned. And then also for the giveaway for $175, stay tuned to the end of the video, and I'm picking my winner live on this episode, and then I will comment and get in contact with you and give you the $175. But stay tuned to the end of the video for that. And like I always mention, I always appreciate you guys' support. Please subscribe and comment what your thoughts are on each video. This is my playoff predictions, and stay tuned for off-season content, but let's get right into things. Our first game is one of these games I'm very undecided on. We have the Texans versus the Steelers. I read a stat that the Steelers were like 22-1 on Monday Night Football on home since 1990 or something. And I looked earlier, they're like 32-5 since 1970. History usually repeats itself. But then you can see the same thing. I feel since 2017, 2018, the Steelers haven't won any playoff games. I think they're like 8 or 9 seasons without a playoff win now. And they usually always get blown out in the first round. It's a Mike Tomlin special, as they would say. But this time around, I don't know, man. They have Aaron Rodgers. You could say the same thing about last year with Russell Wilson, but I just feel like Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback they've had since Big Ben's retired. And they're getting DK Metcalf back this week. And I really think that the Steelers' offensive line is underappreciated ever since undrafted free agent Dylan Cook came in at left tackle. I think he's been very good. Broderick Jones went down with an injury earlier in the season, and Dylan Cook stepped in. I think he's been phenomenal. But I think him and Troy Fautanu are going to have a big test this week against Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, arguably a top 3 pass rush duo in the league. And I think the whole Texans D-line is very good. I think their defense is a team you don't want to play in the playoffs, especially with Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. They have good coverage, linebackers and safeties that can cover the tight ends that they like to use. I know Darnell Washington isn't playing this game. But like I mentioned, DK Metcalf's coming back after his 2-game suspension. And I'm curious, I haven't looked really too much into it. I don't know if Kamari Lassiter is playing this game. But regardless, this is going to be a game where I think it'll be very low scoring. I think the Steelers' defensive line should do pretty well against this Texans' offensive line, who I thought's gotten better throughout the season. But Cam Hayward's been phenomenal this season. TJ Watt's fully healthy after being out for a couple of games with his lung collapsing. Alex Highsmith has been really good recently. Nick Herbig. And then Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon. But man, their secondary is what worries me. I feel like they only have one legitimate, pretty good corner in Joey Porter Jr., and I think he should be following Nico Collins most of the game for the Steelers to have a chance to win. In that Ravens game, they had too much busted coverages with Jalen Ramsey, their safeties and everything. So it's a very tough game to predict. But when it comes to picking a winner in this game, I just trust the defense a little bit more. I just think that the Steelers, like we've always said throughout the whole season, they just don't have enough offensive help right now. I think DK Metcalf's a pretty solid receiver, but they just don't have anyone else that can win on the outside. I know they got Calvin Austin back last week, but I think this Texans defense is a team you don't want to play in the playoffs, and they can go on a run with how well their defense is. So, as of now, give me the Texans to beat the Steelers in the wild card in a low-scoring, close matchup on Monday night. All right, next up we have the Bills versus the Jaguars. This is going to be another good game. This is one of the games I'm looking most forward to seeing. I think either team can win. I think the Jaguars are getting hot at the right moment, but the Bills just have that experience in the playoffs. And I think that the Bills' secondary, is, as of recently, later in the season, has been getting better. And I'm always going to trust Josh Allen over Trevor Lawrence. And especially with how the Jaguars' offense attacks now, I think that ever since he was trading for Jacoby Myers, they like to be more of a pass-friendly offense. I'm not saying they can't run the ball. They actually run the ball pretty well, and they stop the run really well as well. So I think that they can limit James Cook and stuff. When I'm picking this matchup, I'm taking the team I think has a little bit more experience and I can trust more. As in the Jaguars, you need one more full year with this team. I think they're 1 year too early. So give me the Bills in this matchup. All right, and then our last AFC game. I've seen conflicting opinions about this game too, honestly with all of them. In the AFC, the Chargers versus the Patriots. Everyone likes to bring up the Patriots' strength of schedule and how they haven't really beat a legit team, which is definitely concerning. And then going over the Chargers, they have Justin Herbert, an elite quarterback, but their offensive line is absolutely decimated. They don't have their 2 top tackles. They're all injured and banged up on that team, so this actually is going either way as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Justin Herbert's had a playoff win in his whole career, but he's definitely been in the playoffs more than Drake May. So I always like to pick up experience, but I just think that the Chargers are going to have too much to overcome, so give me the Patriots in this matchup. All right, and then moving over to the NFC, I always mention the Rams are my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to stick with them in this matchup too. I think that it was not a fluke, but I just think they had a terrible game against the Panthers earlier in the year. And I think it's not good. The Rams are getting cold right now. I just don't think they've been playing their best football. But I know they're getting Devontae Adams back, and I know they're getting healthier. So I just don't see J.C. Horn and their cornerbacks being able to lock down Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams in that passing attack, plus Kyron Williams. And I think the Rams' defense is pretty underrated. The Panthers are very good at home, so that's very concerning in this matchup. But I just trust Matthew Stafford a little bit more, and Sean McVay's a very good coach, so I'm taking the Rams in this wildcard matchup. All right, and the next up we have the 49ers versus the Eagles. This game is very tricky for me as well. The Eagles feel like they've been skating by wins and stuff, but their defense is so good. But their offense is just very shaky. One game is good, the next game it's not. And that's just Jalen Hurts being inconsistent, and sometimes they're not able to get A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both involved in the game. The one thing that's been going well for them is I feel like Saquon Barkley's been playing better late down the stretch and going back to 2024, 2025 Saquon. And the 49ers defense at times has been shown flashes as an elite defense, and other times it's not. So it's very tricky to predict how this 49ers defense is going to be. And I know they're dealing with a lot of injuries and stuff, but make no mistake, the 49ers offense is really elite with Christian McCaffrey this year. But like I said, it just feels like it's a very bad matchup for both teams. I feel like the 49ers offense is pretty elite compared to the Eagles offense, but the Eagles defense is so good compared to the 49ers defense. So it's going to be I could see it being a very close 27-24 game. But in this matchup, I'm taking upset. Give me the 49ers. All right, and then our last one, we have the Bears versus the Packers. Throughout the season, I think they're 1-1 on the season. I think the Bears beat them the second time around, but the Packers won the first time around. Both very close games, but if I'm not mistaken, I think the Packers outgained them in both games. Obviously, the Packers are dealing with Micah Parsons' injury earlier in the season, and they're not going to have their premier pass rusher, and I feel like ever since then, their defense has been very shaky. But also, the Bears' defense has been a little shaky recently as well. I think this is another very interesting matchup. They've had more experience in the playoffs, but give me the Bears in this wildcard matchup. All right, next up, we are in the divisional round. We have the 5-seeded Texans versus the 2-seeded Patriots, and I think this will be a very good matchup. Like I mentioned when I was talking about the Steelers-Texans game, this Texans defense is a team you don't want to play late in the season, especially early parts of the year, especially with how deep their defense is. I think it starts with their front four with Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter being the stars of there. And then, the back end, you have Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter, Jalen Petre. But like I said, the Patriots' concern is the strength of schedule and how they haven't been able to beat really good teams, and that was very concerning to me. But when picking this matchup, I just think this Texans defense is the team you don't want to play. And like I said, I think this is the most wide open the playoffs have been. C.J. Stroud concerns me a little bit, especially with how inconsistent he can be at times. But I think this offense has gotten better throughout the season with offensive coordinator Nick Cali. But I think the Patriots are a very well-coached team, and that's why it's hard to pick against them. And they're the 2 seed for a reason, but they've had the easiest strength of schedule in many years. But I'm taking the team I trust a little bit more in their defense. I'm taking the Texans in this matchup. All right, and then we have the Broncos versus the Bills. I hate to say it to Broncos fans, but I feel like this is the weakest, least intimidating one seed in the AFC in a while. I think their defense has been very good. I think at times their offense has gotten better, but it's very inconsistent. And at times their defense has been a little shaky as well. But they win games when it matters. Sean Payton's a very good coach. I always like to mention the playoff experience. It really matters. And the Bills have been in the AFC Championship a couple times in the past couple years. They're kryptonite's the Chiefs. And with them not in the playoffs, this is their best chance. But I think the Broncos stopped the run pretty well. So, James Cook would have a hard time getting it going. And I think at times this Bills offense struggles when they play good defenses. So that's why I could see the Broncos taking this one. But I just think that the Bills defense has come along a little bit throughout the past couple weeks. And it's not that I don't trust Bo Nix. I think he's a pretty solid quarterback. In the playoffs, when it comes down to it, if it's a close game, I trust Josh Allen a little bit more to go get me points. I'm just a little worried with the Bills being a really good rushing attack team and the Broncos stopping it pretty well. James Cook could be minimized, and then the Broncos can pin their ears back and rush the passer with their superstar pass rusher, Nick Bonito. And their interior forcing Zach Allen. In this matchup, I'm just going to take the team that has more experience. I think, like the Patriots and the Broncos, are just 1 year too early. I think they need a little bit more playoff experience. So give me the Bills in this matchup. All right, then moving on to the NFC, we have the Rams versus the Bears. Like I always mention, I think both these teams have high-powered offenses, and at times their defense flashes of being elite. And if both units of the offense and defense for these teams can flash and being elite during the playoffs, I think there's a very good chance they can represent the NFC side. I think Ben Johnson's had a very good year, and I think this is definitely a success for the Bears being the 2 seed. Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford have been there, have done it, went to the Super Bowl and won. They know what it takes, and at times Caleb Williams is a little inconsistent. I thought he was not the best against the Packers, so it worries me. But the Rams, they're just a very young defense as well, and their corners aren't the best. And I think that DJ Moore and when Rome Odunze is playing, and Luther Burden and Colson Levin, they have a lot of superpower on that offense, especially with the rushing attack of Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. So I could see them pulling off the upset in this one. Even though they're the 2 seed, I think it would be an upset. I think that the lines would open as the Rams as the favorite. I'm taking the Rams and Sean McVay. And then I think this one would be very good as well. I think the Seahawks are one of the most complete teams in the playoffs. There's a reason why they're the 1 seed. I think their offense with Sam Darnold, JSN, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, who they traded for at the trade deadline, was a pretty solid addition. I like their 1-2 punch of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And then I think their defense has been elite. They don't have that many stars in their defense. I just think their defensive coordinator has been coaching them up. I think Leonard Williams has been really good. Devon Witherspoon. Nick Eamon-Warrior's been a very good rookie. Has a lot of impact on the Seahawks defense. I like how they use him. And then the Niners, like I always mentioned, their offense is very high-powered. There's been multiple times where they put up 40-plus points. I think Christian McCaffrey's the engine of the offense. But I just think it might be a little bit too much for the Niners offense going against the Seahawks defense. I think the Seahawks stop the run really well. And I think if they can make them a one-dimensional team, that's when, Brock Purdy can struggle at times. I think when the 49ers run the ball very effectively, that's when you get the best out of Brock Purdy. And I'm afraid in this matchup, you're not going to be able to with how well the Seahawks defense has been. So in this matchup, give me the Seahawks. All right, and then our conference championship, we have the 6-seeded Bills versus the 5-seeded Texans. This game can go either way. I really could see it. But for some reason, this year, I just think it's the Bills' year in the AFC. Specifically, I think that their kryptonite's out in the Chiefs. They've had an unfortunate season with injuries and underperforming. And I like how the Bills' weakness earlier in the season is getting better throughout the season in their defense, more specifically their secondary. But like I always mention, the Texans' defense is the team you don't want to play. But I'm just a little worried in this matchup that I think that the Texans' offensive inconsistencies might catch back up to them, even though I think they've been doing pretty well recently. Especially with how slow of a start the Texans have had after winning 9 games in a row, and then winning in the wild card and the divisional, winning 11 games in a row, and going to the AFC Conference Championship round. I think it's a very successful season and something to build on, especially with their young players in C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter. I think next year, I think they're only going to get better on defense, and I think they can add more weapons on offense. I think in another year under Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel's belt. But I just think the Bills have that more experience, like I always mention, and I just trust Josh Allen a little bit more. So I'm picking the Bills to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And then going over to the NFC, this one's very tricky to me. I want to stay true to my pick of picking the Rams since preseason. And I feel like if I go against them, it's bad luck. But logically, there's just at times the Rams offense worries me a little bit with Matthew Stafford having a couple bad games. You can say the same thing about Sam Darnold. I think they're both very good quarterbacks. But man, this Seahawks defense has been outstanding, and they don't have that many star players on it, which is crazy that, they're doing this well. I just think they're a very well-coached defense. They stop the run really well, and they have 2 solid corners in Rick Woolen and Devon Witherspoon. But man, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are damn near unstoppable. I think Devon Witherspoon would be pretty good, and I think Tariq Woolen flashes it sometimes, and other times he doesn't. I think they've gotten solid contributions from Josh Jobe, Nick Eamon-Warrior, like I mentioned, Julian Love. I just think the Rams' defense, they don't have a lockdown corner, which they can definitely get in the offseason, but I think JSN can have a very big game in this one. I remember the Rams were blowing them out on Thursday Night Football earlier in the season, a couple weeks ago, and the Seahawks came back. Obviously, the Seahawks are a 1 seed for a reason, but when it comes down to it, I just can't pick against my preseason pick. So I'm taking the Rams in this matchup, but I can see it going either way. And then it comes down to this, our Super Bowl, we have the Rams versus the Bills. one can say this is finally the Bills' year. They get over the hump without the Chiefs being in the playoffs. And then going over to the Rams, last offseason they were mentioning about trading Matthew Stafford. They didn't want to pay him as much. He's like 35 plus, near the tail end of his career. Another Super Bowl under his belt will cement him. Definitely as a Hall of Famer. I think he already is. But definitely a top 10 quarterback if he wins his second Super Bowl, especially with all the stats he's had. I think he's a very underrated quarterback all time. I think each quarterback would gain a lot of credibility with a Super Bowl, but I can't go against my preseason pick. I think I'm picking the Rams in this matchup. I just like the two-headed monster, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. I think they complement each other so well, and I think that Matthew Stafford could be the MVP this season. I just think that this Bills defense is gonna be too much for them. I don't think they have a lockdown cornerback one really. I like Christian Benford, but I think Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams to be too much. I think this Rams defense was a little young last year, and I think they're another year under their belt. And I think this is the Rams' year. I think this is Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford Super Bowl II together after getting traded from the Lions for Jared Goff. I think this is their second Super Bowl together. I don't know what it is. I just have a feeling about the Rams. I think they've been playing a little shaky recently, but I think they're going to get back to full strength at the start of the playoffs. And for some reason, I think this is going to be the Rams' year to win their second Super Bowl within 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So give me the Rams to win the 2025-2026 Super Bowl. All right, and then we're going to be doing our giveaway pick. We have 1 through 18, the 18-week set. I posted videos. We're going to spin it and see which video I'm going to be picking the comment on. So let's do it right here. We're going to be picking from a Week 10 video. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go on here so you guys know I'm not cheating. Week 10, there's 9 comments. Let's see. All right, and there's 9 comments on this video. Let's generate. Comment number 6, which it looks like the winner, Jack Smythe, is going to be the first winner. He's going to be getting $175. And next video I post, I'm going to be providing my proof of him winning. But like I always mention, if you got the more times you comment, the better chance you have to win. He's literally all 9 comments on this video. I'm going to reply on here, winner. And I will be getting into contact with Jack Smythe and give him $175. And like I always mention, I appreciate your guys' support, and I'll be doing more giveaways in the off season. And stay tuned for more videos, guys.